Hello everyone, welcome to Grow Your Future with Luxland. I am Zar, CEO of Luxland Investments. I am joined today by our BDM, Mark Fator.
G'day.
How are you?
I'm well. Good for a Saturday.
Is it Saturday?
It's Saturday today, yeah.
I don't even know.
Very quick week.
I don't even know the days. What are we talking about today, Mark?
Today is the forever debate, I guess, especially here in Australia, of whether to start a business or invest in property first when you're at that crossroad in your life and you want to either do one or the other. So, yeah, that's what's on our plate today.
Well, it's a common topic amongst our clients that walk through this office, and also a question that we always get brought up, on social media and through our network of other businesses. And people see me as a business owner, so they probably think that I'm probably the best person to ask whether to do property or business. And I think it's more common now because the Sydney median house price sits at $1.2 million, and property seems so far out of reach for people. So, they're turning to other ideas such as high-risk businesses, or they might be low-risk businesses, but business in general. And, people are torn between the two. I'm involved in both, but, it's been a very, very long journey. I know you've been involved in both, but I think the common denominator that we have is that we invested in property first.
Definitely. Yeah, it's something where, and we can all say we've had this problem by owning businesses. When you do it at the start, you all you have in your mind is, I'm going to make $1 million by this date, you know what I mean? And you're just chasing the dollar. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot of people that also do it for the fact that they just love it and they don't care for the money. But people that are motivated by money, like we have been in the past, it's the
and
first
we hope our listeners are motivated by
money.
Definitely.
Definitely.
We're here to make money. We're not here to waste time, and we're here to grow wealth. So
that's right. Yeah. No, I was chasing money, and it was I was lucky enough that in one of my articles when I mentioned I had my balls broken by my parents to say get a property, get a property. So all right, yeah, do whatever mum and dad say for the time being. Yeah, there you go. There's the property. It's done and dusted with, but it's served a very, very, very helpful purpose for me later on down the track while I have exited a business. And I guess it's always, I heard a saying the other day about, the rear view mirror is always a lot clearer than what your windshield is. And it makes sense because now I look back and go, I wish I invested in property or a lot more property in those 5 years that I was doing business. But at the same time, A, I wouldn't have met you. B, I wouldn't have learnt a lot of the things that I know now, and C, I guess I wouldn't have developed the balls like what I have now, you know what I mean, to try different things, and that's what I feel business taught me, and I think it teaches everyone because it's a continual time where your back is up against the wall all the time, even when the times are good, your back's still up against the wall because you've got to think of that next move.
So when did you buy your first property? Were you involved in business from the beginning, or did you get involved in business and then buy a property? Which way was it?
So I still had a full-time job when I bought a property, obviously for the serviceability and stuff like that. That was well before, I wouldn't say well, actually, it was only probably less than a year before I then jumped into a business, full-time, right, without the support of full-time work. And I guess back then it wasn't a massive concern for me. Property prices weren't as high as what they are now, but it was just like, oh yeah, get something, so I've got it. It's there, whatever. It felt like it was the normal thing to do, and so yeah, I got that before business, but it was good, and I'm glad I did because it's been a safety net in some way or another, or at least it's also been a very, very because I put it down as collateral, I guess, against bank guarantors and stuff like that. So it has been a big risk as well by doing that and using the property. And sometimes I wish I didn't do that, but at other times I'm glad I did because it helped me push that extra mile to make sure that, hey, my property, or at least a portion of my property, is on the line here. I don't want to lose that. So yeah, to answer your question, I bought the property first, and then was in business shortly after that.
So you'd probably agree that that property gave you some sort of backbone while you conducted your business, because that's the way I felt. So I'm pretty much did the same thing as you.
Yep.
I bought a couple of properties before while I was on full-time wages, so I was on pay-as-you-go. So the borrowing was obviously a lot more lenient towards a full-time worker rather than a business owner. And then I actually struck gold with my first property and made a lot of equity from the very beginning, which helped me leverage into further properties and also then leverage into business. So while I was in business, my properties were growing. So in my first few years of business, I actually lost money in business, but I was making money in property. So I had the confidence and the backbone to keep pushing forward and to take bigger risks and to borrow more money and all of those sort of things. And even till today, like, my risk appetite is quite high. So I can, I've got $200,000 worth of credit cards, which I spread out throughout all my businesses, and I use them quite regularly, and it taught me how to manage debt really well, and it taught me to have a high risk appetite, because a lot of people who haven't been in property and haven't been in business find it hard to part ways with their cash.
Definitely.
And that's why they're asking us this question. Do we open up a business, or do we start a business, or do we buy a business, or do we buy property? So I guess my recommendation will always be buy property.
Of course, yeah.
Right? Even if it's just one property, and it could even just be a unit in a different market where you don't have to live in it, rent it out.
Yep.
At least you've got an asset that's safe, that's producing you an income, and that will hopefully grow in value in the future, so that you can leverage it into more properties or into another business as well. I think if you go all in with a business, like, let's say, for example, you've got 150 grand saved up and you think, okay, I'm going to go and start a t-shirt company. You got to spend, that's your capital, 150 grand, and you're probably going to end up spending more than that eventually. You might make some good money out of it because you might have this cracker concept, but what happens if you lose it? Like, you can't sell your t-shirts and then go, okay, I've got my money back. Who's going to buy all of your stock? You know what I mean? So, and also, banks don't lend towards businesses like they lend towards residential property. Banks love residential property because it's safe, it's stable. If you buy in the right areas, it tends to go up in value. It produces an income, guaranteed, pretty much, and it's pretty much the only business that banks really kind of lend against. Yeah. So you can leverage your equity further. So if you're going back to $150,000 in cash, if you've got that, you put that down as a 10% deposit on a $1.5 million home, you're controlling an asset that's worth $1.5 million. Now, if you go to the bank and say, look, I want to buy a $1.5 million business, and I've only got 150 grand cash, do you think they're going to lend it to you?
Yeah, of course, yeah, definitely.
So, I think where you can leverage your equity further is through property, and that's where most people have to start.
I mean, look, you and I are both strong advocates of going out there and running your own business, going out there and doing it.
We love it.
We love it. We absolutely love it. And we would never recommend anyone not to do it, because we're not the people to stand on the side and go, because we've done it, you should do it. Absolutely not. Like, the only way you're going to ever understand the pain or the pleasure of either property or business is by doing it yourself. What we're giving advice on our own experiences. So it's again, going back to my experience, yeah, I agree with you. I would definitely. I'm glad I got the property. If I had those 5 years again, I would look at running the business in different ways. That's for sure, and probably put a much more push towards, call it, social media and marketing that way, and running it more as an online business, so the risk is less. even though it's a small business, startup kind of thing. And I'd try to minimise as much risk as I can from the start. Knowing that it's going to further benefit me to continue buying more property, because I guess, once you leave that pay-as-you-go paycheck, and enter the big wide world of business or being on your own, and you want to still continue purchasing property, well, in Australia anyway, you've got a 2-year wait with your tax returns. If the banks just don't want to touch you, you've at least got to wait 2 years until you can finally, I guess, look at doing something again with property. And you feel like, well, I'm a lot hungrier than that, and I do want to continue my property journey. Well, the best bet would be to, I guess, really, do a lot of research about that business first before you get into it, and then just so it can co-align with your property investing strategy. That again, that's, with all of this said, that's what I would do again if I had those 5 years. Is I would go back and try to align investing in property with running a business, and make sure that the two could service each other. If I needed to, maybe use an extra 50K from the equity built up on one of the properties, put that into the business, and make sure that, even the business, maybe I don't need to raise the rent on the tenant that's living at the time, or in whatever properties I've got or whatnot, and make sure that the business pays that back. So, you know what I mean? Instead of going to the banks to apply for another business loan if you need it for some reason, you do it through your property.
So you would say, if you could turn back time, you'd get the business to lean on the property investment, and the property investment to lean on the business. So you would make them work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because I think from what you've told us is that you used your property investment as a set and forget method, and you didn't actually treat your property investment as a business because you didn't really know back then. And you were so focused on your business that you just forgot, you just left your property investment to just run. I remember you telling me that you didn't increase the rent for like 3 years, you wouldn't do that to a business. So for our listeners out there, that are looking at starting a business, a lot of the time it's just the idea of starting a business and being a boss where that really is the enticing part, right? Exactly. But you can treat property investing as a business, and that's why we call property investing property entrepreneurship here at Luxland, because we create entrepreneurs through property investing, where you treat property investing as a business. So that means that you spend all your time analyzing data, researching locations, making sure that you're looking at the right types of assets, focusing on cash flows, focusing on your administration and all of those sort of things, so that you're actually running your portfolio like a business. So for me, running my portfolio is almost like a full-time job. And most people say, I only spend 10 minutes a week on it. And it's like, well, if you're trying to constantly improve income and you want to make sure that you're doing as much as you can to squeeze as much equity as possible out of your portfolio, you're going to spend a bit of time on it. And you have to treat it like a business.
Yep.
For example, you can't let your rent stay at the same rate without a review for more than 12 months. Every 6 to 12 months, you should always review your rent, look at the market in the area, see what everyone else is charging, see what people are paying, and keep up with the market. Are there small improvements that you can make in your property to bump up the rent? Is there maybe another air conditioning unit that you can install? Maybe if you repaint the walls, like simple things. Like what I do is I give every one of my tenants a Christmas gift at the end of the year, so that when I do go to raise the rent, they kind of just go, oh, well, the tenant's a pretty nice guy, so I want to support him. And plus they look after the property for me. So it's that your tenants are like your staff, you want to, or your customers, shall I say, right? And you want to look after them. So, making sure they've got a really, really nice place to live, look after them, give them a service, don't treat them like